morning, everyone. Good evening and good afternoon to viewers from all walks of life. This is Denzamos, and you're welcome to the channel of truth, enlightenment, freedom, and the channel of breaking empaths free. If you are new on this channel, I talk about narcissism and narcissistic abuse. I talk about spirituality and I talk about personal and self-growth. And if you know that resonates with you, I invite you guys to join us, give us a like, share the video with friends, and maybe subscribe if you haven't already. And for those that have always been with us, you are welcome back. And thank you for your love and support. So, chosen ones, it's raining. I came with my umbrella out here. So, in today's video, I'm going to talk about the dark night of the soul. Now, of course, when you wake up, the first thing that will happen usually, the veil will lift. You know what I mean? So the veil will lift. Normally what happens next after awakening, usually you start to discover so many things around you, in your reality, in your current reality, in the reality that you have lived before. A lot of people, you're able to see them for who they really are. You're able to understand who do you need to keep around, who do you need to let go. So a lot of changes usually start to happen the very moment you awaken. Now, usually this is very intensive because it's like all of a sudden you've been in this world that you didn't know before, and all of a sudden your balls have gone off, you've snapped, and now you're starting to see exactly a lot of things for what they really are, regardless of whether they are people, situations, or even sometimes things. You start to see everything around you for what it really is. Sometimes it can be uncomfortable, sometimes it can be scary. A lot of people have got different experiences when it comes to the awakening process. So usually what happens is that God starts to show you a lot of things around you. You can talk about God, you can talk about the universe, but in this video, I'll talk about God or the universe will now show you exactly what was hidden behind the veil. And most of the times, you go through some kind of, it's like a mourning process, you know what I mean? You have awakened eventually, you've discovered that the life you've been living before wasn't worth it. You want better, you desire better, you start looking out for more. But as well, as much as you're looking out for more, also you realize that a lot of things and the life that you used to know before is falling away from you. So it's almost, you come into this moment of, it happens almost like a shock. You know what I mean? You're going to some kind of a shock whereby you're seeing everything disappearing all of a sudden. Your ex-wives, a lot of you guys go through divorce, separations, a lot of you guys go through different circumstances. A lot of you guys decide to leave your jobs. A lot of you guys decide to do and to take a different path. So a lot of changes, they start to happen in that moment when you wake up. Along the lines, after waking up is like you go through another process, which is like you start getting enlightened. You know what I mean? Because the person who is waking up, I've told you, the veil will lift. And the next thing what will usually happen, you start getting enlightenment. So it's like you start getting a lot of information. It looks as if the universe all of a sudden starts opening you up to different kinds of information. Different kind of information that it has always been there before. But it's just because you are usually not tapped into this other dimension. So you are usually tapped into very deep, embedded into the matrix. You are not usually aware of this kind of things and information. Now, your eyes are starting to open up and you're starting to see a lot of things around you. And a lot of things start to make sense. That's the reason why you see a lot of times, the very moment you get this kind of information and knowledge, you are now starting to choose to make a very conscious decision about which way you want to go and which direction you want to go. So you go through the process whereby you start getting enlightened, intensive enlightenment. I remember my case in those days. My enlightenment, I think in those days was around, the first one was the first time after awakening, and then after like the 2-3 months that followed, I continuously started getting access to a lot of information that had always been around me that I'd never known about. So you get enlightened. So after the enlightenment, you go to the process, which is like it is like a void. You know what I mean? It is almost like a void whereby you feel you're lonely, you feel uh, people don't understand you, you don't want to do the same things you used to do before, you don't want to go where you used to want to go before, you want to leave your wife behind, you want to leave your husband behind. A lot of these internal changes start happening whereby now you go through this void whereby now you're feeling lonely and empty. That is because you can see where you've been already, but you don't yet understand where you're going. So it's like you see, you feel there is something more to life. You're starting to see and to come to this realization that there is more to life than the life that you've always been living. So you stepping out of that dimension, I'm talking about the 3D, stepping out of that 3D and starting moving towards the fifth dimension, sometime you're going to feel a void whereby life is going to stop making a lot of sense. Now, nobody knows exactly how long the void will take because I've told you guys there's usually this process where you'll experience extreme loneliness in your life. So nobody knows, everybody is different, everybody walks their own journey. Like I've told you guys, everybody walks their own little journey. But as well, we always have to understand that this journey of awakening is simply a journey. So you don't have to really look at it as a destination. You just have to enjoy each and every single day, and you just have to go through the processes because there's no cheat codes. The very moment your bulbs have gone off and you have awakened, there are no cheat codes. You're going to go through the process step by step. It does not matter who you are. It does not matter where you come from. It does not matter what is your circumstances. You are going to follow the steps of these processes of awakening one at a time. And the more you learn and the more you get enlightened and the more you evolve, is the more a lot of stuff is going to make sense to you. But you see, in this video, before I go into the dark night of the soul, why am I making this video about the dark night of the soul? So there's a process where, after the void, that process of loneliness, of course, as you're learning, you're also becoming lonely because there's nobody to sit around you and discuss a lot of things. Nobody seems to get you. So you're getting out of that shell, you're moving by yourself, and you're standing alone on your own 2 feet. Now, eventually, a lot of people usually they discover that is the moment during the void, that process and the period of loneliness. That is exactly when a lot of people they start to discover their path. You know what I mean? So for me, it took me a couple of months, of course, eventually to discover that this is where I wanted to go. That's the direction I wanted to take. You know what I mean? It took me a couple of months, but eventually the path will come to you. You discover your path, and then you choose and you decide this is exactly where I want to be, and that is exactly where I want to go. So you find your path eventually. You start to follow your path, step by step, bit by bit, baby steps. You're getting out of the shell. You're getting out of the box. You're following your dreams. Now, usually the universe is moving you bit by bit. Because if the universe just brought everything all of a sudden just dumped everything on you after awakening, believe me, guys, it doesn't matter who you are. Nobody will ever be able to handle that kind of energy. So all these things start to happen bit by bit by bit. You know what I mean? Until eventually you discover your path and the purpose that you want to follow. Now, when you discover your purpose, eventually your path, what usually happens is that a couple of months could be years. It doesn't matter. It doesn't really. I do not have a specific date and time, but usually what will happen along the path, you're also going to experience a dark night of the soul. Now, the dark night of the soul usually happens in so many ways. It can happen somewhere along the lines of you waking up, the early days of waking up. It can also sometimes happen whereby in the middle of the waking process. So it's like the processes have got to happen. Sometimes they don't happen in a specific order, but one of the processes has got to happen after the other one, even though they do not have a specific order that they follow. Because, like I've said, everybody follows their own journey and everybody is walking their own path. The dark night of the soul is very intensive, ladies and gentlemen. So usually, what can happen is that usually in that time, you go through a lot of tests. Guys, let me tell you something. When I'm talking about tests, I really mean you go through the tests. Because remember, you've decided to leave things behind, people behind, habits behind, a lot of things that used to make sense to you. You're leaving everything behind. Now, you're on this journey which whereby you don't know exactly where you're supposed to go or where you need to go. You feel that you're driven to follow a certain path. You don't really know the destination, but you just know this is where I want to go and I want to follow that path no matter what, whether I see the destination or not. Now, all of a sudden, the universe brings in the test. Most of the people, they say the dark night of the soul is that period where you start to face the intensive tests from the universe. So the universe brings in a lot of tests. So what the universe does now, because remember, over the years, it doesn't matter. It depends on how long your journey has been. But over the years, you have forgotten about a lot of things. There is so many friends you've kicked out of your circle. You've left your families. A lot of you black ships have escaped from your families. A lot of you guys have left your jobs. You are now going to start to follow and to experience the real test of this process. Because you see, the God wants to know, the universe wants to know. You're following this path. You can almost know that that's where you want to go, but do you really want to go there? Do you really want to continue? Do you really want to carry on? How strong are you in spirit? And how desperate do you want this? Because you're talking about evolution. When we're talking about this journey of spiritual awakening, we're also talking about evolution. So you start to you start to evolve and move towards a higher version of you. So what usually happens is, along that journey, the dark night of the soul kicks in. Guys, let me tell you something. That moment is very intensive. That's why you're going to start to see a lot of old habits kicking in. And guys, it's going to be very obvious because remember, you've evolved. You're enlightened. You're evolved. You know the difference between the good and the bad. Now, there was those things that used to make a lot of sense to you. All of a sudden, a couple of years down the road, 2 years, maybe 3 years down the road, you're now facing these things in front of you. Those past friends of yours are showing up all of a sudden. They're telling you, hey, listen, guys, Denzo, let's go and have a joint. You know, there's that bar we used to see. Let's go and, let's go and have a drink. You know what I mean? Let's go and do this and let's go and do that. A lot of things that you left behind. Guys, let me tell you something. A lot of things, they're coming around and starting to haunt you. What is the scary part is that sometimes, which I want to let you guys know aware, which I want to make you guys aware. A lot of times you're going to notice also in that period, in that process, that is where a lot of people go back to sleep. So the moment people experience that moment whereby they're being tested, you know what I mean? So like the test is very intensive and they can almost not the test is very intensive for them and they can almost very hard find it very difficult to make a decision. A lot of guys, that is the moment where they go back to sleep. They're like, okay, friend pops up, you know what, Denzo, let's go back and do this, let's go back and do that. Sometimes you will see a lot of these exes, your ex-wives and whatever, ex-husbands and boyfriends, they're starting to show up all of a sudden. It's been 3 years. They can sniff, they can even smell your growth. They can see that this person is going somewhere. They can see where you're going at a certain level, at a certain degree. They can sniff where you're going. So that's when you see them, now they're coming around and they're starting to drag you back to go back to sleep. So that is where a lot of people, you hear them, they are struggling to evolve because in that moment of the dark night of the soul, you are alone, you're by yourself and on an island. You think you're growing, you think you're working on yourself. You think that you are doing all these things to become a better version of yourself, but at the same time, you're still being haunted by the old demons. So those things are still popping up in your head. You know what I mean? Oh, you know what, Denzel, we missed this, and Denzel, we missed that. You know, sometimes your exes are showing up. You know, they want to come back to you. You know, forgive me, and you know, I did a mistake. I didn't know that. Uh, I did a mistake. I shouldn't have done this. I shouldn't have done that. So a lot of people, even sometimes friends, they're coming back all of a sudden into your life, and they want to be a part of you. Because normally, what is happening behind the scenes is that a lot of people, because they can see you're heading towards greatness. They can see this journey that you're walking and they want to be a part of it. So you see, they have left you behind or you have left them behind at a certain point. The years have gone by, 1 year, maybe 2 years. Now, all of a sudden, they are coming around because now they can see that whatever you told them you wanted to go, it is exactly where you're going. And most of the guys, they can actually sniff your destination. They can almost see it is only you who is actually not really seeing where you're going. But a lot of people around you, especially those guys who were around you before, they can almost see where you're going. Now that's why they always come in. They pop in. Those ex-wives, ex-husbands, they are coming in. They want to take you back into those entanglements, into those relationships. A lot of old friends are showing up. They're reminding you of the things that you've left behind. You know, we used to go and drink in the pubs. We used to do this, we used to do that. So they're reminding you of all these little things. And sometimes the reason why a lot of people go back to sleep in this moment, this is because the temptation is almost unbelievable because it's like you can remember almost 3 years ago these things that you used to do. And now you want to go back and revisit those incidents, those situations and see if they really make a lot of sense to you. So that's when a lot of guys, they get tempted to go back to old patterns and behaviors, and even sometimes people and places, not knowing that actually sometimes when they go back in there, sometimes they're even going to be trapped. You know what I mean? So the dark night of the soul, it is that period where you face a lot of tests from the universe. You know, you want to go and try that same pub you used to sit before many years ago. You have already forgotten about it. You have been evolving. You have been working on yourself, and all of a sudden, somebody just comes all of a sudden they almost steal you out of your comfort zone, and they bring you and take you back to those old behaviors and places. A lot of you guys end up going back to your exes. That's why you see a lot of times people are going back to their exes. You know, it's like they're going back to the people they used to date before, and it's like almost you temporarily forget about your journey. But usually, like I've said, you guys, like I've said earlier on, guys, like I've said, when you have awakened, when you have seen it, you cannot unsee it. You know what I mean? When you have gotten out of that box, you've seen what is outside of the box. You have even sniffed it. You have tested it. You know how it smells. You know what it feels. Let me tell you, it is the biggest and most important feeling you'll ever get in your entire life. You will know that there's a difference between the third dimension and the fifth dimension. So normally, it doesn't matter how far or how long you go back to sleep. Normally, there's always going to come a time whereby you're still going to come back, of course, and continue your little journey. You know what I mean? And take off from where you have been. But normally, it takes you by surprise during the dark night of the soul. It is the test. God is testing you. The universe is testing you. Hey, listen, do you want to continue this journey? I've shown you all these things. I've given you all this information. I've shown you your parents for who they are. I've shown you your friends for who they are. I've gotten you out of very difficult, toxic relationships. Do you really want to continue this journey? Try to look back where you have been. So the universe is like, it's like a reflection. You know what I mean? And you're looking back where you've been and you're like, wow, looks like you are missing that. Looks like you've been missing this. Looks like you've been missing that. A lot of friends, oh, where have you been, you guys? You know, I've not seen you for a year. I've not seen you like for 2 years or things like that. It is like sometimes it is almost very difficult to resist those temptations. But it's like a lot of people are coming back into your life. Now, normally, those people, they're not awakened like you. So they do not know. They don't have a lot of information. They do not know exactly what you know. They're not enlightened like you. They're still asleep. Normally, they're coming back. They're going to drag you back, bring you back to sleep. But usually, like I've said, you guys, in my videos, as you have seen it, you cannot unsee it. So normally what will happen after that, it could take you that moment of sleep. You may go back to sleep temporarily. Even sometimes it may even take you a couple of months. Some people can even sleep for 6 months. They have all this knowledge. They have got all this information, but they're literally in the matrix sleeping. So it can take like 6 months, sometimes 7 months. People can even sleep for a year. But as well, you can always have the confirmation with me that it will always come to that point whereby you reawaken and come back and start that journey from where you stopped and continue evolving to become a better version of yourself. So, chosen ones, in this video, I want to let you know that the dark night of the soul is specifically, if it hasn't happened already, it will happen eventually. You're going to face that moment whereby you're going to get tested. The tests are sometimes too good to be true and sometimes very hard to resist. But you are in each and every way going to be tested because the universe wants to know if you want to evolve and grow, become a highest version of yourself, or if you want to actually come back, go back to sleep, and stay exactly where you have been. So it is not a coincidence that all these things happen. It's just a process that people go through. You know what I mean? It is like a process that people experience when they're walking this journey of evolution. You know what I mean? So if it has happened already, I would like to know in the comment section below what you have seen, what kind of tests have you got from the universe, from God, and where exactly are you at in your journey. Let me know what has been your experience, guys, in the comment section below. Book a session with me, guys. Donate and support to this channel if you want to. All the links you need, you'll find them in the description section below. Until then, guys, much love and blessings. It's been lovely to have you guys on board. There's almost signing out. Peace.